Hello, you hottie hot hotties, and welcome to Wild&T with Teddy.
Sarah.
And Tawny.
Welcome back. Who is ready for winter blues to be over?
Me.
Bye, seasonal depression. Mm-mm-mm.
Hello, sunshine, vitamin D.
Realizing that life is okay.
Oh my gosh, going outside, like the freedom to go outside without like preparing,
I'm just ready for the sun to start working properly.
Oh my gosh,
Yes.
yes. So then I can loathe my life while I'm at work indoors.
I mean, I do love a good snow hike, but man, I am ready for a nice, beautiful spring hike with blossoms and greenery and green shoots and getting rid of all the leaves in my yard and having flowers and the birds singing. Like I can't wait for spring.
I just feel like there was a really long winter, longer than normal for me this year anyway. And I don't know if it was just because there was a lot going on or if it really genuinely was just a long winter.
I feel like it was just such a constant tease. Like winter was like, ooh, we're winter. Ooh, we're not. Maybe we're not. Oh, just kidding. We are. Nope, we're still winter. Oh, but maybe we're not. And that constant back and forth has been exhausting.
For sure. I actually had a good sunny day a few days ago. And so you bet I was like, sky's out, thighs out. So I had shorts on and a t-shirt and I was in the sun for several hours. And at the end of the day, I was like, I'm exhausted. Why am I exhausted? And I was like, it's the sun. It's because I haven't seen sun in months. And I actually started already a little watch tan on my arm and I'm pretty proud of it.
Oh, that's yeah, that just made me think I am most excited to break that hammock out and just roast in the sun. Not that it'll be warm enough. Lax in the sun in my hammock.
I'm looking forward to so I have like a blanket in my car. So I'm looking forward to during my lunch break going outside and sitting underneath like this little tree and like just enjoying the sun for 20 to 30 minutes every day.
That was so nice.
That's beautiful.
And eating my lunch. So.
You should just start taking like a canvas out there and like doing a lunch break painting. You just throw it in the back of your car every day. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to that for springtime. I'm looking forward to just like being outside and reading, going to more parks. I like going to parks in like the spring. It's just nice. And there's a lot of nice parks out here too with like rivers next to them. So and it just smells nice and the grass and the birds and it's just like and it's beautiful. But yeah, Tawny, are you planting a garden this year?
I want to. So the plan is I've seen where people put down cardboard under the soil to keep like weeds and things from growing. So I really, really want to plant rose bushes. I would love to have just like all sorts of colors of rose bushes. So I'm gonna try. We're also trying to get grass in the backyard where the dog likes to run her little trail back and forth, and it's just literally a trail of dirt where she runs. It's super funny actually. Until it rains and then it's really muddy. So yeah, I hope at least rose bushes. As far as like vegetable garden, it's kind of difficult to find a good spot to put it in my yard, just because my backyard is a lot smaller than my front yard, and I don't know that I necessarily want that in the front yard. So I don't know about that, but at least the
tomatoes growing in your front yard, so you have the beginner of a vegetable garden for your front yard already.
Yeah, I think I officially killed them off forever. though, on accident.
I don't believe it. I bet you anything they're gonna pop back up as soon as spring comes.
I called them my zombie tomatoes because they did pop up this last year after I thought they died forever. But there's also these stupid plants, and I don't know what flower these are, but they're like long, they're bulbs, it's a bulb, and they're these long green stems. And then occasionally, like 3 flowers will bloom and then die in like a week. And so it's just this dead flower and these green, like bush type grass stalk looking things. And I ripped them all out the first year that I was here. At least I thought. And then they came back, and I was like, I literally dug through the dirt, hand picking out these tiny bulbs to get like the big ones and the small ones to make sure they didn't grow back. And they did grow back. And I don't know what kind of flowers they are, but I'm determined to get rid of these stupid flowers. I just want what I want, not what those are.
That's really funny. Tawny, if you did like a whole like flower garden, that would be so cool. And you could host like little garden parties in your backyard with the chickens.
Chickens running around eating the grubs.
Make little flower crowns for the chickens and be like a little fairy tale.
That would be way cute.
Are you still into like fairy garden stuff like you were as a teenager?
I actually have mom sent me grandma's fairy garden furniture. So that is something that I want to do is I'm trying to figure out where I want to put it. So I am this spring wanting to set that up.
That'll be so adorable. I love
Yeah.
that. Oh, and Tara, you have your hummingbird feeder.
Oh yes. I am probably gonna set it up right outside this window in my office.
Cute.
So that
Ooh.
it can entertain me while I work. That's the plan. Hopefully the squirrels don't destroy it. They're pretty reckless out here. And the chipmunks.
She had black squirrels, Teddy. Black squirrels.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I was the first time I saw them, I couldn't stop pointing them out. And my friend was like, she's like, yeah, I've never seen a black squirrel. I was like, no, they're so beautiful. And then so when Toddy came and she was pointing them out, I was like, oh yeah, the black squirrels. I forgot that it's like so cool out here.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they look like my cat. Like they're black like a cat. It's crazy.
Oh, weird. Not like
Mhm.
our boring squirrels over here out west.
But springtime also brings some shamrock green. So this topic is inspired by our good old St. Patty's holiday that's happening. And it's lucky in an unlucky situation. And I feel like we've all had these, and sometimes it's hard to recognize. But one of the funniest ones that I can think of first is once upon a time, we did a girl trip to Hawaii while Teddy was going to school there. And I accidentally booked my flight to leave Hawaii 2 days later than everybody else. And I didn't realize this until like the day before everyone else was leaving. And I was calling the airlines. I was in tears. I was crying. And Teddy's just like, this is not a bad thing. And I was like, oh, I just can't because, just the whole like travel back home plans. And there's like 5 of us total who were visiting. And I was in charge of helping 3 get back home or 2 get back home. And it ended up actually being like the best thing for me because I was so stressed. And then just getting like 2 days in Hawaii just to do whatever the crap I wanted by myself was actually the most amazing thing.
It was really funny because you ended up staying like in my dorm and we just like slept on my tiny like bed together. And
Yeah, that was the struggle because we no longer had the Airbnb or I think I got to extend the rental car, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
You extended
But it
the
was
car.
like, where am I going to sleep? Where am I going to stay? And Teddy's like, in my dorm with me.
It was really funny. And you got to go surfing and like surf a ton because we borrowed Uncle Vaughn's or my roommate's surfboards. I can't remember whose surfboards we borrowed.
Yeah, because
But
we had
yeah,
surfed earlier that week, but I didn't get a chance. We didn't have time. I let everybody else do it. And then so I got the opportunity to surf while I was there by myself, essentially.
yeah, and you loved it so much. You were like, next time I come, I'm just gonna surf all day, every day. That's all I'm gonna do. It was
I
really
still
funny.
So tell me what part about this Tara was unlucky, because I failed to see that in this situation.
I felt it was unlucky because like I wasn't prepared for it, wouldn't have had a place to stay. We had flown out of Vegas and had to drive back to Logan, I think. And so that forced my friend who came with me to like hang out in Vegas for 2 days and wait for me. And so I just felt so bad and
This
like
was
all
unlucky for
like
her.
it was unlucky. Yeah. It ended up being kind of unlucky for her. She was fine though. She had family she visited, but yeah, just being kind of a controlling person and things popping up that I wasn't prepared for was a struggle to get past, but ultimately it ended up being the most lucky.
Yeah, no, for sure. I feel like it's those unplanned things that were like, this is how it's supposed to go, and it's not going that way, and it feels very unlucky. But sometimes you get some good stuff out of it, and sometimes it's your life that you get out of it. I had I would say that I'm normally unlucky in an unlucky situation. Like that's a norm for me. I've got hit in the face with so many like sports balls. It's just uncanny. And um and I never thought that I was like an accident prone person, but I did get into two pretty big accident situations. And one of them was when I was 18 and I got 83 stitches from one event. And I've told many stories about what that event was. And I have sworn off telling people fake stories about it because the last fake story I said is probably going to curse me for the rest of my life. So.
That ended up being kind of a like I'm still scared. This was like 4 years.
So if those two people that I told this fake story to are listening to this, I'm sorry. Just
Forgive us.
publicly. But the real story is that I was in New Mexico. Tawny, Dallas, and I were visiting our grandma with our parents, and she had this giant utility ATV. And Tawny and Dallas had been riding on it, and then Dallas, like it was my turn to drive it, so I hopped on with
So,
Dallas.
not
Yeah,
to cut you off, but we actually, so Dallas and I, we really wanted to ride it, and just they had a couple acres, and we would, just kind of ride around. It was surrounded by this barbed wire fence. Again, it's in New Mexico. There's like cactuses, whatever. So Dallas and I had decided that we really wanted to ride, so we go and we ask Grandma if we can ride it, and she's like, only if there's two of you, like. I guess so. And so we're like, okay, cool. So we're riding around a little bit, but I was like, I feel weird. I don't know. Just something feels off today. So I told Dallas, I don't really want to ride it anymore. I don't feel comfortable. And Dallas is like, I still kind of want to ride it. Let's go see if Teddy wants to. So that's when I believe Dallas went and asked you. And so you're like, yeah, sure. Or whatever it was you said. And
yeah.
then you went and jumped on and you were riding with him while I just kind of chilled inside because I was like, I just feel weird about this.
So Tawny feels weird and keeps that sentiment to herself. And
Stay safe. Stay blessed.
and Dallas drives it. It's fine. I drive it. I was the oldest one there and the most responsible. I did the most irresponsible thing. And so I was driving it. I stood up while I was driving while we're going on a straight lane. And I was coming up on the turn. So I sit back down and I hit the brakes, the foot brake, but the foot brake wasn't working. And I did not know that until that exact moment. And I realized we were not slowing down fast enough to make the turn. So again, it's surrounded by a barbed wire fence. So I turn hard and the ATV turns on its side. So Dallas and I
Yeah,
are now
sounds like
sliding through the field while the ATV is flipped on the side, and it goes through the fence, and then we go through after it. And I don't like physically understand how this happens, but like
Oh wait,
we
so you slid off the ATV, it kept going through no, or you're still on the ATV when you
so
went
it
through?
was like weird. So we're turning and the ATV tips over, right? And I don't know exactly how we fell off, but we did because the ATV turned over and the ATV goes through the fence, it hits the pole, bends the pole. And then like all I remember is just like grasping with my hands for something to stop myself, which is probably what Dallas did too, which is why he got a scar on his like
Mhm.
palm. But when we stood up, we were still on the same side of the fence that we started on. So we didn't go through the fence. And
That makes no sense. You were like sliced up, like your
Yeah,
whole upper body.
yeah, but I wasn't on
completely
the
torn
other
up.
side of the
Yeah.
fence. It was really weird. I don't know how this happened, but I am like getting up and Dallas is getting up and I look at him and I'm like, "Are you okay?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he looks at me and he's like, "Are you okay?" And I look at my hand and it is sliced open here. It's
Mhm.
sliced open. And my first initial thought is dad can't super glue this together. And so like because that was how we dealt with wounds. We were just super glue. And so I'm like, I'm not okay. We need to get back to the house. And it's a field. The field is full of like goat head weeds, which has like it's like a ball with a bunch of thorns on them, and it really hurts to step on. And I kind of start taking off and I look behind to see if Dallas is okay. He's like stumbling across the field like dazedly because he got a concussion. He hit his head against the ground
All right. The
coming
amount of
down.
concussions Dallas has had is pretty
Really
impressive.
concussion
But
prone.
also, I feel like this moment is so similar to your jet ski moment. Like you're describing it like the same, and it makes no sense.
So I get to the back door anyways and things happen. I like went and I don't know why my first thought was to go to the kitchen sink and like rinse my hand off. It was pretty gross. And when I felt like I was going to faint because like the blood was rushing from my face, I leaned my head against the counter. And when I looked at myself, I realized that my shirt was completely torn up in the front. My bra was still intact, so I wasn't like flashing anyone, but like, and I was so sad because it was my favorite shirt.
It was.
Oh my gosh. And yeah, so our parents were out on an errand. My grandma quickly understood what was happening. She called my parents. They came back. We were really lucky because the hospital in the middle of New Mexico where we were, the closest hospital was like an hour away in Albuquerque. And there was a clinic in the next town over that had just started being open on Saturdays, and it was a Saturday. So we got to make it to the clinic. We got there. They immediately got me in and stitched me up. 83 stitches. Dallas had like, I don't know how many stitches he had. So
10.
I was going to
Dallas,
say like,
Dad's biggest complaint about Dallas getting injured was because he's like, that's his throwing hand for football. And I was like, oh, come on. He got away with just a scratch. Whereas like Teddy is like beat up.
Teddy
Yeah.
doesn't do football. She's fine. Teddy. Like,
I just remember that comment and I was like, you're joking, right? That's what you're worried about? Is throwing
no,
hand.
yeah. So
But it wasn't your face. And it wasn't
No.
anything vital, which I know the situation sounds just only unlucky, but it was pretty lucky.
No, yeah, and the biggest things was the scratch on my hand, which was my worst cut, because I had cuts on my side and I had cuts on my arms, um, which turned into pretty big scars. But the cut on my hand, it
Scratch.
nicked it nicked the top of the tendon on my knuckle, but it didn't go deep enough that I needed surgery for it, so it healed up just fine. And also, the cut went parallel to the main vein in my hand, whereas if it had gone perpendicular, I would have bled out pretty quick.
'Tis but a scratch. A scratch? Your arm's off. No, it isn't.
So, yeah, so aside from like the cosmetic not having an issue with my face or neck or anything, um yeah, I it could have gone very different, and it was definitely like a close call for as far as accidents go. So that's been for me like a really big deal in my life, and like my scars have been like a nice reminder to me about how blessed I've been throughout my life. And so, yeah. So it's kind of, yeah, lucky unlucky.
Probably the biggest lucky unlucky story that we're gonna tell. So mine pales in comparison to that. At least the one I'm gonna tell today, because I've definitely had worse. But the one I'm gonna tell today is, let me paint the setting for you, okay? It's summer. We're teenagers. Our church would always do this father-daughter camp out up in Yosemite at Nelder Grove, I think was the name of it. So in Yosemite, there's those huge trees, and with huge trees, there come huge tree trunks if they get cut down for whatever reason. So where we would camp out, we really like to climb. There was this one particular tree trunk. And when I say it was huge, I mean like several of us would have had to hold hands to get all the way around this tree trunk. And it was very tall. I don't know, maybe 20 feet or so.
And it was very normal for us as kids to climb everything.
Everything.
So we had lots of trees that we would climb all the time. So Tawny springing up on this tree trunk was super normal.
Yeah, we did this all the time, barefoot even. And this trunk in particular had like a smaller tree that grew out of it. And so you would climb up this tree trunk and then you would slide down the smaller tree because it was smooth from a ton of people doing that. So then you would just keep, climbing up. Well, there was this one particular spot that we would climb up because it was just the easiest one. It had like the best like footholds and handholds or whatever else. So a bunch of people, of course, are climbing there. And I'm like, I'm going to climb on a different side of the tree so that I can get up there because Teddy and another friend of ours were up there. And so I'm climbing up this tree and I grab onto this piece of bark and it rips off. And so I freeze essentially and my eyeballs go huge. And I look up and I see Teddy and our friend just staring down at me over this tree with their eyeballs as big as my eyeballs are. Just, what is going on here? And I very slowly, and this whole thing I swear is in slow motion.
It really was.
Down this tree trunk.
But then she turns upside down though.
Not yet. Not yet. So I'm just very slowly sliding down this tree trunk and I'm like, I can't grab anything. I don't know what's going on. Well, then there's another tree growing out of this tree trunk and my ankle gets caught between this tree and the tree trunk. And that's when I start slowly tipping over upside down.
And we're just like covering our mouths, like just watching this.
Well, you screamed, Teddy.
I did scream because it was such a slow progression here. I was just like, you're dying. I'm watching.
Teddy's watching me my demise. Our dad, you might wonder where he's at this point. He had wandered off. I don't know what he was looking for.
He was talking to Jamie. They were
no, he
together.
wasn't. He had walked away because Jamie was there, but Dad was somewhere else. I don't remember exactly where he had gone. He went like off on like this short little walk to look for something. So I am just, there falling off a tree with nobody except my sister who's at the top of the tree trunk to watch it happen. And so I'm hanging upside down for a good few seconds by my ankle between this tree and this tree trunk, just like dangling for a minute until by some miracle my ankle gets loose and I end up like rolling and facing towards the tree, just sitting on my butt with like my legs in like a straddle position. I just kind of sit there and stare at the tree. And Jamie comes running because I'm pretty sure he saw me fall. I mean, at least fall from my ankle being caught. And he comes running and he helps me up and he's like, "Are you okay?" And I just nod my head. I have no words. I just nod my head. And he's like, "Are you hurt?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Just your pride?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So my lucky, unlucky part of the situation is one, I could have just straight fallen backwards off this tree as soon as that piece of bark went flying off. I could have smacked on the ground. I could have busted my ankle or my knee because when I rotated after my ankle got caught, obviously my ankle is still there and my body's turning upside down and it twisted my leg. So my leg and my ankle are facing essentially one direction while my body's facing the other direction. And then when I dropped, I guess I was close enough to the ground. I really don't remember this part, but I guess I was close enough to the ground that I did a roll, like a forward roll out of it. Thank you, gymnastics.
Roll.
Teaching me how to fall.
I would love to watch all of this over again one day.
It was
That's
so surreal. It was so wild. Oh my gosh.
Luckily, right then, Dad had gotten back, and so Dad sees Jamie like holding me, and he's like, "What happened?"
Dad's like, "What happened? What did you know?"
So again, not as serious, but still could have been way worse than it was. And now
Very
it's just
scary. Yeah. And me, I was like, what could I do? I was just like diving after you.
I just remember your fingers holding onto the edge, like you're laying on your belly, like your fingers holding onto the edge of the trunk, just staring at me, eyeballs wide.
Classic Johnny.
Classic Tawny and Teddy. Like the fact that the oddest things happen when you guys are like in the same vicinity. I'll be honest. You guys have interesting things happen when you're together.
Well, that made me think of Dallas, like trying to follow our cousin down the mountain in Hico, just like mountain goating down these rocks. And Dallas was just not as agile as our cousin, and then falls like a good, very long way. It must have been like at least 30 feet, falls down the mountain. And again, I'm the only one there. I don't know how this happens, but I followed him because he started following our cousin. And I was like, you probably should have been by yourself, right? And so, and yeah, and then he falls down. And I do the exact wrong thing because I'm not a Boy Scout. Excuse you. And I go and get him. And then he's like, my ankle. And I literally did the thing you're not supposed to do and took his shoe off to see if his ankle was okay. So.
You know, and Teddy, it's not that you're any better climbing down a mountain. I've watched you hike down and you shake. Your legs go crazy.
For those reasons, because I'm terrified of falling off this mountain. And so, yes, I am the most tentative.
It's really funny.
No, I don't blame you. I met up with Robbie one time to go to Zion National Park, and we were there with like a group, and the last day we were there, I was like, hey Robbie, let's go for like a sunrise hike because it's Zion. And Robbie's like, yeah, sure. We go to this hike it's probably one of the highest points that you can get to, that there's like a trail to overlook the Zion Valley. And we're hiking. It's really pretty. And then suddenly in like the horizon, there's like dark clouds. And I'm like, it's fine. I checked the weather. There was nothing coming. We literally, it's like.
What a mom moment for you. Let's have a picnic.
I checked the weather, okay? It was like a 3-4 mile hike in. We get to the point, there's like this metal plaque in the ground telling you like how high up you are in the viewpoint.
Back.
We get there and I get to the edge. Yeah, don't step any further. It's literally a cliff. There's no fence, nothing. And we're just like, how beautiful. And then suddenly lightning strikes. we are standing next to a metal grounding piece. Lightning strikes over our heads. We literally, I scream and duck. Like, we can feel the static. And it just starts pouring rain. And let me tell you, our oldest brother, Robbie, he is a conundrum where he loves to work on cars. He loves to like do physical work. He's fine with getting dirty, but also he hates being dirty at the same time. And we are hiking through red clay mud, and then it's literally turns into a flash flood. Like the trail we're going down is a stream, and we are running, trying to get away from the edge in the lightning, like running past lightning, like running through lightning, essentially. It was the most terrifying, one of the closest moments to death. And halfway through, the lightning calms down. It's just raining. The trail is like covered in mud, and we are soaked through. And all I can think is Robbie's going to kill me when we get back to the car because we are dirty. We almost died, and we're soaking wet. And I was like, he hates me so much right now for putting him in like his least like favorable situation.
The reason he tries to avoid these kinds of situations.
He will avoid these situations. And it was like we were almost there, almost to the car. And I can't remember if he said it or I said it. And he was like, I was like, are you okay? And he's like, I think that this will be one of those moments where like a couple months from now, we'll look back and laugh. And I was like, oh, he's pissed.
It's kind of way of saying, I can't talk about this right now.
But he laughs about it a lot now. Like, it's pretty crazy.
He barely got out of there. I literally had to have him drive because the mud was so bad. And yeah, it was beautiful, turned into an unlucky situation, turned into a core memory.
Well, speaking of Robbie, so this segment, I guess, this is actually something that Robbie and I have talked about in the past, the like lucky unlucky, because you know we would exchange stories and be like, yeah, no, that was lucky. I was lucky to almost die, but then not, I guess. And it's one of those where do you consider it lucky if you're unlucky that you got there? Because one of the things that I guess triggered to me, I guess one of the example situations for a lucky unlucky situation is Robbie when he was out at Santa Monica Beach one day, and he's just kind of wading in the water, and then he feels something. He like stepped on something, and then he feels this pain in his foot, and he's like, what the heck was that, right? So he just kind of doesn't really think much of it, but then he ends up like wading back to the shore, and his foot is just bleeding profusely because he had actually stepped on a stingray. Stingray got mad naturally and stung him in the foot because
on a California beach, which is in California, so random and unexpected.
He's like not even waist deep in the water too, and yeah, so he of course, stingrays have this, what is it, like toxin in their stingers that keeps your blood from coagulating, so essentially you can just like bleed out. So of course he has to like call the ambulance because he can't drive, his foot's done. So he has to go to the hospital, and it was an unlucky situation because he steps on a stingray out of California Beach. So it's a popular beach too. It's Santa Monica, and it turns out that the stingray, when it stung him in the foot, didn't hit any vital, like no tendons, no arteries, nothing, no veins, like nothing that really affected him long term. So I think that was one of the things where we're like, yeah, that was really lucky. Kind of. It was,
and
it
now
was what happened.
It's lucky that he finally knows the spirit animal too. So that's also lucky.
Yes. So Robbie's dubbed spirit animal has been a stingray, and let me tell you, that's a really cool spirit animal to have. Mine's a jellyfish if we're going by being hurt by animals, and it's a brainless blob. So stingray is better.
Well, yeah, because you've been stung twice, Teddy. I've only been stung once by a jellyfish.
One of the jellyfish that stung me was actually dead. So that was the first one. If I
Very like
reincarnate
that.
as a zombie jellyfish,
You know what you would turn into on Davy Jones' ship.
So if we're going sea creatures, would that make mine a sea urchin since I stepped on one?
That's terrible.
I tell my friends, I'm like, yeah, I stepped on a sea urchin. And they're like, no, you didn't, honey. So I pick my foot up. We're still in the water. Pick my foot up, and there's these little spines just waving back and forth at the top of the wave, and their jaws just drop. I'm like, yeah, no, there's like spines in my foot right now.
Paris is a sea turtle, even though she hasn't been like bit by a sea turtle. But
I hope I never get bit by and I definitely never claimed that one, but I mean, I'll take it if you want to give it. I'll take
I've
it.
given you sea turtle gifts, plus your tortoise is named Honu, which is sea turtle in Hawaiian. So
I've taken it as my own anyway.
Nobody would dare take that away from you, Tara. So it's yours.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. And this spring, thank your lucky stars. Stay lucky. Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.
bye. Thank you for listening to Wild&T. This podcast episode was produced and edited by Teddy Chanpoon, Kyron Maciel, and Dallas Hanson. Remember to subscribe, rate, review, and of course, share with your sisters. For more content, you can follow Wild&T on all platforms or our individual socials. See you next week.